This is Ken Pyle with VOD TV. We're at Parks Associates Connections Conference at CTIA, and we're with JT Taylor of Cisco. You're involved in the distribution part of the business, from distribution of video, and there's a panel that you and your colleague was on, the future of video services. So I want to talk to you a moment about that. What takeaway would you have if an audience member had? Where do you see the future of video services?
I see the future of video everywhere, actually. So with the new technologies and the new screens that are coming out, service providers will have the ability to send virtually any piece of video to any device anywhere you are. And this is an extremely popular consumer value proposition. People enjoy consuming content of all kinds, whether it's professionally produced, whether it's amateur produced, or whether it's prosumer. So with the proliferation of devices and screens and the upgrades in the networks with our service providers, as a consumer, you'll be able to seamlessly get any piece of content you want anywhere you are.
And that's a great premise, and it's a great idea. The question is, what challenges kind of are between where we are today and that vision of content anywhere, anytime?
Yeah, there's a couple challenges for sure. One is the user experience itself. So we do have multiple devices, and where do you go to find your content if each device has a different UI or user experience, if you will? There's always a trade-off, so it's great to have 10,000 hours of VOD and virtually unlimited hours of internet content, but if you're spending all your time finding it, then that is a problem, because obviously you want to get to the content and you want to watch it. So I think one of the main challenges is unifying that user experience so that it is seamless for people and it's simple or easy, which I think is well said when someone says the height of technology is simplicity. It ain't that easy to do, but certainly I believe the industry, with folks like Cisco and our service provider customers, are in a position to really make that happen. And I think the second challenge is just the consumer adoption. As with a lot of things in our industry, for the Joe Six-Pack, that average person, you can tell them a value proposition, like pause live TV, and then they'll think, well, how can I pause live TV? It's live. Right. But when they see it, then it sinks in. So getting people to actually use the service and see it in action, I think, is another challenge.
Well, and you kind of point to the viral nature of some of these things, right? You kind of have to use it, or maybe have your friend show you how to use it before it adopts. And I think we've seen a lot of that in the internet world, right? Where you have things like photo sharing and stuff like that, that there was no master plan to do this. It just suddenly kind of evolved. And I'm kind of wondering, you touched upon this, about the whole idea. You have a lot of devices in the home, outside the home, taking all this content. How do you see that kind of evolving into sharing networks or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think the trick will be making sure that everything's synchronized, right? And so you're going to have, for lack of a better term, a clearinghouse or a gateway or some unifying platform that allows all these connected devices to seamlessly talk to each other and give the consumer that individual control that they're looking for. One of the panelists, I thought, very acutely said yesterday, he was asked, we've been talking about connected home for 30 years, and we're still talking about it. And I think one of the things that's happening is the economics and the technology are converging to a point where it just isn't that much more expensive to put the IP connectivity into a device. And the devices that we're getting are way more powerful than they used to be. And that convergence is allowing the technologists, or the companies like Cisco, to leverage it in order to drive those connections. This is an old, tried and true use case, but when Star Trek hit their button and started talking to each other, I mean, that was an IP-connected device to a network that allowed people to communicate. Well, it wasn't really, but that's ostensibly what we're talking about now. Right,
and it cut through all the technology part, and it was just that simple thing. And one of the things that Ashu mentioned was some figure, like it took 20 years to get 1% of the devices in the world connected to the internet. And the thing he didn't say is, okay, how long is it going to take that other 99%? I have a feeling it's going to be pretty fast.
It is. If you look at technology adoption, it still isn't at the speed of light, but it is getting faster. So I don't know the exact numbers here, but it was decades before color TV hit 10%, right? When you look at the mobile phone, it still took a decade or two to get to where we are now, or ubiquitous adoption, if you will. So it will take time for sure, but to get to 99%, I don't think is the finish line. I think getting to the majority of devices connected is really the goal, and I see that happening measured in years and not so much decades.
Well, I think one of the other important points, you just raised this, and we've been talking about it for 30 years, and there have been efforts. In some sense, there's nothing new. It's just refinement of visions that were here for a long time, right?
Yeah, to the technologist, revolutionary technology is fun. You get it, you consume it, and then the shiny ball shines somewhere else, you go at it. But that's only 15% of the market, right? And it happens to be everybody here, so we all talk amongst ourselves like we're average, and we're not. The other 80–85%, they're looking for the evolutionary. And so you can come out with something where the end game value proposition is quite powerful. So all your devices are connected, so it's easy to communicate, it's easy to get entertainment. But if you're spending more time trying to set it up than using it, the average person is just like, I'll sit in front of my TV and pick up the phone. Right. So getting to that point where everything is ubiquitously connected and things are happening in a more seamless fashion, then I think you'll see that average person begin to really adopt it, and it builds on itself. More devices, more usage, more demand.
Well, and that gets back to the whole idea, back to the video topic of you get these 5,000 channels on, and then how do you get the right 5 channels that you want to watch, right?
Exactly. Someone was trying to make a correlation to the music industry to the video industry. And so, you used to buy CDs, and I don't know if you ever heard of Tommy Two-Tone, but he had this song. Right, well, I have that CD, and nothing against Tommy, but the rest of the songs aren't that great. But I still spent the $13.99 to get that song. And a lot of people talk about how the average person only watches 10, 15 channels of TV, but really what they're watching are 20 or 30 shows that just happen to be on those channels. Sure. And so it's a much different economic to try and just pull out those shows from the channels, but with a more connected, more synchronized experience, and you give people the ability to find those programs, then I think it organically happens. I definitely don't see channels going away anytime soon. I don't see live TV going away anytime soon. I think all what we're talking about is it will be augmented. And so perhaps there is a less focus on live broadcast TV, but I don't see it disappearing like some people are predicting.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I appreciate your comments today, and I look forward to further conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.